The Grand Danube Hotel was the perfect stage for murder, elegant, luxurious, and filled with secrets. Then, at midnight, the violinist stopped playing and vanished. His violin remained on the stage, a pool of blood stained the marble, and every guest claimed innocence. But Hercule Poirot saw something the police missed. Someone was performing. Someone knew the ending before the curtain had even risen. Watch closely, mon ami, because the murderer is hiding behind the perfect mask. The curtain rises. Chapter 1. The stage is set. The Grand Danube Hotel was the perfect stage for tragedy. Elegant chandeliers glittered above polished marble. Velvet curtains framed the ballroom like a theater, and beneath the warm golden lights, Budapest's finest guests played their carefully chosen roles. Then, at midnight, the violinist stopped playing and vanished. His violin remained on the stage. A dark stain of blood marked the marble floor, and every person in the ballroom claimed to know nothing. The police saw a disappearance. Hercule Poirot saw a performance. Someone in this theatre of wealth was playing the role of innocent. Someone else was playing the role of murderer. The curtain rises. It was a cold November evening in Budapest, and the Grand Danube Hotel seemed determined to resist the winter outside. Rain whispered against the tall windows, while inside, the air was warm with firelight, cigar smoke, expensive perfume, and the faint scent of fresh roses arranged beneath the sweeping staircase. The hotel was magnificent. Its brass doors gleamed beneath electric lamps. Its polished mahogany reception desk reflected the faces of arriving guests. Footsteps clicked across the parquet floor. Silk gowns rustled softly, and somewhere beyond the ballroom doors, a piano played beneath the distant sound of laughter. It was a place where appearances mattered, and that evening, appearances were everything. Among the guests was Countess Ilona Varga, elegant and composed in a dark velvet gown, an emerald necklace resting against her throat. There was Sir Reginald Ashcombe, a wealthy British financier whose reputation for ruthless business dealings followed him wherever he travelled. Dr. Emil Horvath, a distinguished Hungarian physician, moved quietly through the rooms, while Madame Clara Weiss, dressed in silver silk, seemed to observe everyone without ever allowing herself to be observed. And then there was Stefan Markovic, the violinist. For 3 weeks, Stefan had performed every evening in the Grand Danube's ballroom. He was 38, dark-haired, serious, and possessed of the melancholy charm that made strangers believe they understood him. He played beautifully, but Stefan had another talent. He noticed things. He remembered conversations. He watched people. And on that particular evening, someone had begun to fear what he might have discovered. At 11:30, the ballroom was crowded. Champagne glasses chimed. A cork popped somewhere near the orchestra. A waiter hurried across the floor, carrying a silver tray, while the grandfather clock beside the entrance counted down the final minutes before midnight. Stefan stood beneath the chandelier, with his violin beneath his chin. The room became quiet. Then he played. The melody was slow and haunting, rising and falling, like a voice remembering something painful. Guests listened from velvet chairs, while rain traced silver lines down the windows. At a small table near the back, Hercule Poirot watched. He had been staying at the Grand Danube for 4 nights. His small figure was impeccably dressed, his black moustache perfectly arranged, his shoes polished, his posture precise. Beside him sat Captain Arthur Hastings. "Beautiful music," Hastings whispered. Poirot nodded. "Yes. You don't seem impressed." I am impressed by the violinist. That sounds like the same thing. No, mon ami. Poirot's green eyes remained fixed upon Stefan. I am impressed by what he is watching. Hastings frowned. What do you mean? Poirot made a small gesture toward the ballroom. Look. Hastings looked. Stefan continued playing. But between phrases, his eyes moved. Toward Sir Reginald, then Countess Varga, then Madame Weiss, then toward the ballroom doors. Perhaps he is simply nervous, Hastings said. Poirot smiled. Perhaps. The music continued. Then, at precisely midnight, Stefan played the final movement. One note. 2, 3, and then silence. The violin stopped. Several guests looked up. At first, nobody moved. Then a waiter heard something fall behind the ballroom, a sharp, metallic sound. He hurried toward the service corridor. A moment later came a cry. People stood. Chairs scraped against the parquet. Poirot rose. Within seconds, the ballroom had become chaos. The hotel manager appeared, pale and breathless. There has been an accident. What happened? Someone demanded. The violinist. Poirot moved toward the corridor. Hastings followed. The service passage was colder than the ballroom. The warm scent of perfume disappeared, replaced by damp stone, dust, and the faint smell of cleaning chemicals. Then they saw it. Blood. A dark smear lay across the marble floor. Beside it was a single white evening glove. But Stefan Markovic was gone. The violin remained in the ballroom. His music remained on the stand. But the violinist had vanished. Inspector Bela Kovacs was summoned. The guests gathered at a distance, whispering. Poirot stood at the edge of the corridor and looked carefully. He did not touch anything. He simply observed. The blood, the glove, the open service door, the empty corridor. Then his gaze returned to the ballroom. The violin, he murmured. What about it? Hastings asked. Poirot pointed. It has not fallen. So, if there was an attack, why did the violin remain perfectly positioned? Hastings shrugged. Perhaps the murderer placed it there. Poirot smiled. Perhaps. The hotel manager hurried over. Mr. Poirot, this is terrible. Yes. We must find Herr Markovic. Naturally. He may be dead. Poirot looked again at the blood. Perhaps. The manager stared at him. Perhaps. Blood is evidence of blood, monsieur. It is not necessarily evidence of death. The manager fell silent. Poirot bent toward the white glove. There was one tiny red mark near the cuff. He examined it without touching it. Then he straightened. Who discovered this? I did. And who informed you? The manager hesitated. Madame Weiss. Poirot turned. Across the ballroom stood Clara Weiss. She wore a dark expression now, her silver gown catching the chandelier light. Poirot watched her. She appeared frightened, very frightened, but something about the performance disturbed him. Her hands were trembling, her lips were pale, her eyes were wide. Everything was perfect, too perfect. Poirot approached her. Madame Weiss. She looked at him. Yes? You informed the manager? Yes. Why? I heard a noise. What kind? A crash. Where? Near the corridor. And then? I came downstairs. Poirot nodded. Of course. She looked relieved. Poirot smiled. Observe, mon ami, he whispered to Hastings as he stepped away. This suspect plays her role too perfectly. Hastings looked at Madame Weiss. She looks terrified. Yes. Isn't that natural? Sometimes. Poirot's eyes narrowed. But the question is not whether the emotion is real. What is the question? Whether the emotion belongs to this moment. Before Hastings could reply, Inspector Kovacs entered. He was a large man with a stern face and heavy moustache. We have searched the corridor, he announced. No sign of Markovic. Any exits? None. Windows? Locked. Poirot looked thoughtful. Then he is still here. Kovacs frowned. Impossible. Poirot smiled. Ah, Inspector. Impossible is a word that should be used very carefully. The police began searching the hotel. Suitcases were opened, rooms were inspected, servants questioned, guests were ordered to remain inside. Yet Stefan Markovic could not be found. Then Poirot returned to the ballroom. He stood before the empty chair where Stefan had played. The violin was still there, beautiful, untouched. The sheet music rested upon the stand. Poirot lifted the final page. There was no music on it, only a handwritten sentence. He read it silently. You cannot conduct a performance when the audience knows the ending. For several seconds, Poirot said nothing. Then his expression changed. Not fear, not surprise. Recognition. The theatre, he whispered. Hastings stared at him. What? Poirot folded the paper. This is not merely a disappearance, mon ami. He looked across the ballroom, at Countess Varga, at Sir Reginald, at Dr. Horvath, at Madame Weiss. Each face appeared innocent. Each face concealed something. Each person had entered the ballroom with a role, and now one of them had been given another: victim, witness, suspect, or murderer. Poirot adjusted his moustache with precision. The stage is set. Outside, thunder rolled over Budapest. Inside, the grandfather clock began to strike. 1, 2, 3. Poirot looked toward the assembled guests. Let us see, he murmured. Who forgets their lines? The stage was set. The players assembled. Let the drama begin. Chapter 2. Enter the players. By 1 o'clock in the morning, the Grand Danube Hotel no longer resembled a place of luxury. The crystal chandeliers still glittered above the ballroom, the polished mahogany still shone beneath the lamps, and the velvet curtains still framed the empty stage. But the atmosphere had changed. The hotel had become a theatre of suspicion, and every guest was now an actor under Poirot's watchful spotlight. Inspector Bela Kovacs had ordered the main doors locked. No one was permitted to leave. The rain continued tapping against the tall windows, and the cold night air pressed against the glass. Inside, servants moved nervously through the corridors, their footsteps echoing across the parquet floor as police searched rooms, cupboards, service passages, and staircases. But Stefan Markovic remained missing. Poirot stood beside the ballroom entrance with Hastings. Everyone is performing now, Poirot said quietly. Performing? Yes, mon ami. Some are performing fear, some innocence, some outrage, and some guilt? Poirot's green eyes gleamed. That is what we must discover. Inspector Kovacs approached. We will begin formal questioning. Excellent. I want you present. Poirot smiled. Then let the first scene begin. The first person brought into the library was Countess Ilona Varga. She entered wearing a dark velvet dressing gown over her evening clothes. Her emerald necklace remained around her throat, and the scent of expensive perfume followed her into the warm room. She sat opposite Poirot. He studied her for several seconds. You knew Stefan Markovic? Yes. How well? She hesitated. Well enough. That is not an answer. The Countess looked toward the window. We were friends. Only friends. Yes. Poirot leaned back. At what time did you last see him? 11:20. And where? In the ballroom. What did you discuss? Nothing important. Ah. Poirot arranged 3 pencils upon the table. Nothing important often becomes important after midnight. The Countess looked at him sharply. Stefan complimented my necklace. Your emerald necklace? Yes. And what did you say? I thanked him. Was that all? Yes. Poirot watched her hands. She was holding them tightly together. Madam, why are you nervous? I have just witnessed a man disappear. That is reasonable. Then why ask? Because sometimes the performance of fear hides another emotion. Her eyes flashed. You suspect me. I suspect everyone. The Countess stood. I did not hurt Stefan. Poirot smiled. I did not say you did. She paused. For a moment, her expression softened. Then she left. Hastings looked at Poirot. You think she knows more? Certainly. Do you think she's guilty? Poirot shook his head. No. How can you know? I do not. He smiled. I merely know she is not performing guilt. The second scene began with Sir Reginald Ashcombe. He entered as though he were arriving at a business meeting rather than a police inquiry. His evening jacket was immaculate, his silver hair perfectly combed, and his expression irritated rather than frightened. He sat without being invited. I assume this will not take long. Poirot raised an eyebrow. That depends upon you. On me? On whether you give truthful answers. Sir Reginald smiled coldly. I always do. Poirot touched one of the pencils. Where were you between 11 and midnight? In the smoking room. Alone? Yes. Why? Because I wished to smoke. Nobody joined you? No. So you have no witness. I don't require one. Unfortunately, the police do. Sir Reginald leaned forward. I had no reason to harm Markovic. Perhaps not. What does that mean? Nothing. Poirot's voice remained pleasant. But tell me, Sir Reginald, why did Stefan Markovic speak to you after dinner? The financier's expression changed. Only slightly. I don't recall. Really? Really. Poirot smiled. Then perhaps your memory will improve. Sir Reginald stood. You are wasting my time. Poirot looked up. Bravo. The financier frowned. Bravo? You played the role of offended gentleman very convincingly. Sir Reginald's face hardened. I don't like your tone. Neither do murderers. Silence. Sir Reginald stared at him. Poirot smiled politely. Good night, sir. When the door closed, Hastings whispered, You deliberately provoked him. Of course. Why? Because anger is an excellent actor, but a poor director. The third scene belonged to Dr. Emil Horvath. The doctor entered quietly. His dark suit was slightly wrinkled, and he smelled faintly of sandalwood cologne and cigar smoke. Poirot gestured toward the chair. You examined the blood. Yes. What did you conclude? It is human blood. Anything else? No. Could it have come from a serious wound? Possibly. Could the person survive? Certainly. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Interesting. Horvath looked uncomfortable. You think Stefan is alive? I said nothing of the kind, but you asked. I ask many things. The doctor sighed. I treated Stefan 6 months ago. For what? A heart condition. Hastings looked surprised. Was it serious? Moderately. Could it have caused him to collapse? Yes. Poirot nodded. And did Stefan know? Yes. Did anyone else? Horvath hesitated. His friends. Which friends? The doctor looked toward the door. Countess Varga. Poirot said nothing. Then Horvath added, and Madame Weiss. Poirot's expression became thoughtful. Madame Weiss. Yes. How well did she know him? Very well, I believe. The fourth scene began shortly afterward. Clara Weiss entered the library. Her silver evening gown caught the lamplight. She appeared composed, too composed. Poirot gestured toward the chair. Madame Weiss, Mr. Poirot, you were the person who informed the manager about the blood. Yes. Why? I heard a crash. From where? The service corridor. You were in your room? Yes. Room number? 317. Poirot smiled. And from room 3117, you heard the crash clearly? Yes. With the windows closed? She hesitated. Yes. Poirot leaned back. Did you see Stefan Markovic tonight? No. Did you speak with him? No. Did he speak with you? No. Poirot paused. Then how did you know the missing man's name? She looked at him. The manager told me. Before you came downstairs? Yes. When? I don't remember. Poirot's smile disappeared. You do not remember? No. Ah. The mask slips. Did you catch it? Clara's fingers tightened around the arm of her chair. Poirot noticed. Madame Weiss, do you play the violin? No. Do you know music? Some. Enough to identify a valuable instrument, I suppose. Stephane's violin was valuable. I know. How? Silence. Clara looked toward Hastings, then back at Poirot. Everyone knew. Poirot nodded slowly. Of course. She stood. I have answered your questions. Yes. She reached the door. Poirot spoke once more. One final question. She stopped. Did Stephane ever tell you he was afraid? Her face changed. Only for a heartbeat. Then the mask returned. No. She left. Hastings stared at the closed door. That was the first real reaction we've seen. Indeed. What did it mean? Poirot stood and smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve. It meant that the question reached the truth. Later, Poirot returned to the ballroom. The police had removed the blood-stained glove. The violin remained on the chair. The sheet music remained on the stand. Everything else had been disturbed. But Poirot noticed something. The chair was perfectly aligned with the stage. Too perfectly. He crouched and examined the floor. There was a faint mark beneath one leg. The chair had been moved, perhaps 3 inches. Poirot's green eyes gleamed. Interesting. Hastings leaned over. What is it? The chair was not here when the blood was placed. How can you tell? The dust. Poirot pointed. Look carefully. The dust beneath the leg is undisturbed, but the mark begins here. Hastings stared. I don't see anything. Poirot smiled. Ah, but you are learning. Then Poirot noticed another detail. A tiny fragment of silver thread caught beneath the chair. He lifted it carefully. Madame Weiss wore silver. Hastings frowned. Then she's guilty. Poirot shook his head. Too easy. He placed the thread into an envelope. This is a theater, Hastings. If an actor drops a prop where everyone can see it, perhaps he wants the audience to notice. The investigation continued until nearly 3 in the morning. Every guest had been questioned, every story had been examined, and yet the mystery had only deepened. Countess Varga had lied about her relationship with Stephane. Sir Reginald had lied about his meeting with the violinist. Dr. Horvath had concealed Stephane's medical condition. Madame Weiss had clearly known more than she admitted. 4 people, 4 masks, 4 performances, and somewhere among them was the truth. Poirot stood beneath the ballroom chandelier. The violin rested silently on the stage. The empty chair seemed almost to accuse the room itself. Poirot looked at Hastings. Tomorrow, we begin again. Why? Because tonight they performed for us. And tomorrow, Poirot smiled. Tomorrow, mon ami, we make them forget the script. Outside, the rain finally stopped. The ballroom fell silent. The players had entered. But who performed truth, and who performed lies? Chapter 3. The First Act. Morning came slowly to the Grand Danube Hotel. A pale winter light filtered through the tall windows, touching the polished mahogany and cold marble with a grey sheen, while the smell of strong continental coffee drifted from the breakfast room. Yet beneath the hotel's elegant surface, the atmosphere remained tense. Every guest knew that the violinist had vanished, and every suspect knew that Poirot was still watching. Hercule Poirot sat at a small breakfast table, arranging sugar packets into a perfect line. Hastings entered, carrying several newspapers. Nothing, he announced. Poirot looked up. Nothing. No report of Markovic. Naturally. Poirot carefully placed the final sugar packet into position. If the police have not declared a murder, the newspapers have little to print. Hastings sat down. But surely someone must know where he is. Poirot's expression became serious. Someone does. Who? That is what we are going to discover. At 10 o'clock, the hotel manager brought them unexpected news. A maid had discovered a small leather suitcase hidden behind a linen cupboard near the service corridor. Poirot immediately went to examine it. Inside were 2 shirts, a passport, a concert program, and a photograph. The photograph showed Stefan Markovic standing beside 3 people: Countess Ilona Varga, Sir Reginald Ashcombe, and Madame Clara Weiss. Hastings stared. They all knew him, apparently. Poirot turned the photograph over. Written on the back were 6 words: "For Clara, who remembers the last movement." Poirot's eyes narrowed. Ah, what does that mean? Something unpleasant. The photograph was 7 years old. Stefan looked younger, almost carefree. Countess Varga was laughing. Sir Reginald appeared irritated. But Clara Weiss was different. She was not smiling. She was looking directly at the camera. No fear, no sadness, only watchfulness. Poirot held the photograph closer. She knew the photographer. Hastings frowned. How can you possibly know that? Because she is not posing. Poirot smiled faintly. She is observing. The first scene of the morning belonged to Countess Varga. She requested to speak with Poirot privately. When she entered the small sitting room, she wore a dark green dress and carried a pair of soft kid gloves. "I lied last night," she said. Poirot gestured toward the chair. "Then today we begin with truth." She sat. "Stefan and I were engaged." Hastings, standing beside the window, looked surprised. Poirot did not. "How long ago?" 7 years. "And why did you separate?" "Sir Reginald." The Countess looked toward the door. "He discovered our relationship." Why did that concern him? Because Stefan had discovered something about his business. Poirot leaned forward. "What? Forgery? Financial documents?" "No." She hesitated. "Paintings?" Poirot's eyes sharpened. "Art forgery?" "Yes." "Did Stefan threaten to expose him?" "He intended to." "Then Sir Reginald had motive?" "Yes." "But did he kill Stefan?" "No." "You are certain?" The Countess looked at Poirot. "I believe Stefan is alive." Poirot's eyebrows rose. "Why?" "Because he contacted me 3 days ago." "What did he say?" "He told me he had found the person who betrayed him." "Did he name that person?" "No." "Did he give you anything?" The Countess removed a folded piece of paper from her handbag. Poirot opened it. It was a torn fragment of sheet music. Across the bottom, Stefan had written, "The person who plays the final note is not the one who begins the song." Poirot read it twice. Then he smiled. "Very theatrical. What does it mean?" "It means someone wants us to think about the order of events." The Countess frowned. "I don't understand." "Neither do I." Poirot stood. "But I shall." After she left, Hastings looked at him. "You believe her?" "I believe she is frightened." "Of Stefan?" "No." "Of Sir Reginald?" "Perhaps." Poirot walked toward the window. "Or perhaps she is frightened of someone else entirely." The next scene involved Sir Reginald. He arrived furious. "You have no right to continue questioning me." Poirot smiled. "I have every right to ask questions. You are not the police." "No." Poirot touched his moustache. "I am more inconvenient." Sir Reginald glared at him. Poirot placed the photograph on the table. "You knew Stefan 7 years ago." "I knew many people." "He accused you of art forgery." "I never saw that man outside the hotel." "That is not what I asked." Sir Reginald's jaw tightened. Poirot waited. The silence became uncomfortable. Finally, Sir Reginald said, "The young man was obsessed with proving himself." Was he wrong? Sir Reginald stood. Be careful. Poirot smiled. Ah, there is the mask. What mask? The mask of confidence. Sir Reginald stared at him. You think you frighten me? No. Poirot's voice became soft. I think you frighten yourself. For the first time, Sir Reginald looked genuinely afraid. Then he left. Poirot watched the door close. Hastings shook his head. You enjoy provoking people. Not at all. You certainly seem to. Poirot smiled. I enjoy watching what happens when people forget their lines. That afternoon, Dr. Horvath returned to Poirot. I remembered something. Excellent. I treated Stefan 6 months ago. Yes, he had a weak heart. Could someone have poisoned him? Horvath hesitated. Possibly. With what? I cannot say. Was there anything unusual about his condition recently? The doctor looked uncomfortable. Stefan came to me 2 days before he disappeared. Why? He believed someone was following him. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Did he name the person? No. Did he appear frightened? Very. Was he pretending? No. Poirot nodded. That is important. Why? Because genuine fear is rarely theatrical. The doctor lowered his voice. Stefan told me something else. What? He said. If I disappear, look behind the music. Poirot became completely still. Behind the music. Yes. Dr. Horvath left. Poirot immediately returned to the ballroom. The violin still rested on the chair. The music stand remained exactly where it had been. Poirot examined the sheet music, page after page. Nothing. Then he lifted the music stand. Behind it, attached to the wooden frame, was a small envelope. Inside was a hotel receipt. Room 214. Hastings looked puzzled. That's not Stefan's room. No. Then whose? Poirot smiled. That is the question. He walked toward the reception desk. Room 214 had been vacant for 3 weeks. But the hotel register showed something interesting. Someone had entered it the previous night. The name was false. Mr. Charles Morgan. Poirot looked at the signature, then at the photograph, then back at the signature. His eyes gleamed. This handwriting, he whispered. Hastings leaned closer. What? Poirot tapped the paper. It belongs to someone we have already met. Before he could explain, a scream came from upstairs. They hurried toward the sound. A maid stood outside room 214. Her face was white. The door was open. Inside, the room was empty, but on the bed lay Stefan Markovic's violin bow. Beside it was another message. You are watching the wrong actor. Poirot stared at the words. Then he smiled. Bravo. Hastings looked at him in disbelief. Bravo? Yes. Someone is threatening us. Exactly. Poirot picked up the message. Someone is becoming nervous. He looked toward the corridor. Ask yourself, mon ami, why would a guilty person tell us we are watching the wrong actor? Hastings thought for a moment. To make us suspect someone else. Perhaps. Poirot's expression hardened. Or because we are very close. He looked once more at the empty room. The hotel had become a stage. The suspects were actors, and someone behind the curtain was desperately trying to control the performance. Poirot touched his magnificent moustache. The first act has begun. He glanced toward Hastings, and already someone has forgotten a line. The first mask cracked. More would follow. Chapter 4. Rehearsed Lines. By the following morning, the Grand Danube Hotel had become a house of carefully rehearsed stories. Breakfast was served as usual, beneath the crystal chandeliers, coffee steamed in silver pots, and waiters moved across the polished parquet with quiet efficiency, but nobody behaved naturally. Every suspect had an alibi. Every alibi had a weakness, and Hercule Poirot had begun to suspect that the entire hotel was performing for him. He sat at breakfast with Hastings, stirring his coffee slowly. "They are all lying," Hastings said. Poirot smiled. "Not all. Most of them, then. That is more accurate." "And you know which lies matter?" "Not yet." Poirot placed his spoon beside the cup with perfect precision. "But a lie is like a rehearsed line, mon ami. The more often it is repeated, the easier it becomes to hear when the actor has memorized it." Inspector Kovacs arrived carrying a folder. "We have results from room 2114. Poirot looked up. "And? The fingerprints are inconclusive." "Of course. But we found something else." Kovacs opened the folder. A hotel register. The name Charles Morgan had been entered at 11:45 on the night Stefan disappeared. Poirot studied the handwriting. "Who checked him in?" "The night clerk." "Did he see the man?" "Yes." "What did he look like?" Kovacs shook his head. "Average height, dark coat, hat pulled low." Poirot smiled faintly. "A perfect actor." Hastings frowned. "What? An average man wearing an ordinary coat? Nothing memorable." Poirot tapped the register. "The best disguise is not ugliness, Hastings. It is forgettability." The first person Poirot confronted was Countess Varga. She entered the library wearing a cream blouse and dark skirt, her face pale from lack of sleep. Poirot placed the photograph from the previous chapter on the table. "You told me Stefan contacted you 3 days ago." "Yes." "Why did you not tell Inspector Kovacs?" "Because I did not trust him." "Why?" She hesitated. "I don't know." Poirot watched her carefully. "That is not true." The Countess looked away. "I was afraid." "Of whom?" "Sir Reginald." "You believe he wanted Stefan dead." "I believe he wanted Stefan silent." "That is different." "Yes." Poirot leaned forward. "Did Stefan give you anything besides the music?" "No." "Did he mention room 2114? Her eyes widened. "Only slightly." But Poirot saw it. "You know the room." "I have never been there." "That is not what I asked." She stood abruptly. "You suspect everyone." "Yes." "Then suspect me." Poirot smiled. "I already do." The Countess stared at him. For a moment, anger replaced fear. Then she left. Poirot turned to Hastings. "She knows about room 214. "How?" "Her eyes. You cannot build a case on someone's eyes." "No." Poirot's expression became thoughtful. "But the eyes can tell you where to look." Next came Sir Reginald. He entered wearing the same immaculate suit as the previous evening. Poirot pointed to the chair. "Sit." Sir Reginald remained standing. "I have nothing more to say." "Excellent." Poirot smiled. "Then this will be brief." He placed the hotel register before him. "Do you know Charles Morgan?" "No." "Have you ever used that name?" "No." "Have you been inside room 214? "No." Poirot nodded. "Good." Sir Reginald turned toward the door. Poirot spoke quietly. "Then why did you leave your cigarette case there?" Sir Reginald stopped. Slowly he turned. "What?" Poirot smiled. The cigarette case had not been mentioned in any report. Sir Reginald's face changed. "You are lying." "Yes." "Why?" "Because I wanted to see whether you would recognize the room." Silence. Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Bravo." Sir Reginald clenched his jaw. "You are playing games." "No." Poirot stood. "I am directing the performance." Sir Reginald left without another word. Hastings stared. "There wasn't a cigarette case." "Of course not." "You deliberately trapped him." "Exactly." "Does that prove he was in room 214? "No." Poirot smiled. "It proves that he believes something important happened there." Later, Poirot questioned Dr. Horvath. The doctor was nervous. "You told me Stefan was afraid." "Yes." "Did he tell you why?" "He believed someone was following him." "Who?" "I don't know." "Did he mention the police?" "No." "Did he mention Inspector Kovacs?" The doctor's expression tightened. "No." Poirot watched him. Your answer came too quickly. Horvath frowned. I don't understand. Truth often pauses to remember. Lies are already prepared. The doctor looked away. Poirot leaned closer. You have spoken to Stefan since his disappearance. Horvath's face went pale. No. Yes. I swear. Do not swear. Poirot's voice became firm. Tell me when. The doctor lowered his head. Last night. Hastings stared. Where? In the old service passage. Poirot remained silent. What did Stefan say? He said he was hiding because someone had tried to poison him. Who? He did not know. Did you tell anyone he was alive? No. Why not? Because I was afraid the person who attacked him would finish the job. Poirot nodded. For once, Doctor, your secrecy was justified. The investigation shifted again. Poirot returned to the ballroom. He examined the violin, the music stand, and the empty chair. Then he noticed something. The violin strings had been recently replaced. Interesting. Hastings looked at him. What? Stefan changed the strings shortly before he disappeared. Does that matter? Perhaps. Poirot examined the bridge. A tiny piece of folded paper was hidden beneath it. He opened it. 3 minutes after midnight. Poirot's expression hardened. That is the missing moment. What missing moment? Everyone tells us Stefan disappeared at midnight. Yes, but nobody actually saw him disappear. Hastings stared at him. So the performance may have continued for 3 minutes after the audience believed it had ended. Poirot immediately summoned the hotel manager. At what time did you hear the music stop? Midnight. Precisely? According to the clock. Was the clock accurate? The manager hesitated. No. Poirot's eyes sharpened. How inaccurate? 3 minutes slow. Hastings stared. Poirot smiled. Ah, the entire timeline was wrong. The music had not stopped at midnight. It had stopped at 12:03. Those 3 minutes belonged to the murderer, or to Stefan, or to both. Poirot gathered everyone in the ballroom that evening. Countess Varga, Sir Reginald, Dr. Horvath, Madame Weiss, even the hotel manager. The violin rested beneath the chandelier. Poirot stood beside it. You have each given me a performance. Nobody spoke. Some of you lied to protect yourselves. Some lied to protect another person. And one of you has lied because the truth would destroy you. His gaze moved slowly across the room. Madame Weiss looked down. Sir Reginald shifted in his chair. Countess Varga remained still. Dr. Horvath swallowed. Poirot smiled. The difficulty with rehearsed lines is that actors forget the circumstances in which they first learned them. He lifted the hotel register. Charles Morgan never existed. Then he raised the sheet music. Room 214 was used. Finally, he pointed toward the clock. And the disappearance occurred 3 minutes later than everyone believed. The tension in the ballroom rose. Someone would break character. Poirot could feel it. Then Madame Weiss spoke. You are wrong. Poirot turned. Am I? The violin stopped at midnight. Poirot smiled. How do you know? She froze. Poirot stepped closer. Nobody told you that. Her face drained of color. You said you heard a crash. Yes, but you could not have known when the music stopped. She said nothing. Poirot's voice became softer. The mask slips. Did you see it? Madame Weiss looked toward the door. Poirot knew. She had just given him another piece of the script, and this time the script contained the truth. Rehearsed lines began to falter. The script was failing. Chapter 5. The mask slips. The ballroom fell silent after Madame Weiss's mistake. The crystal chandelier hummed faintly overhead. Rain whispered against the tall windows, and somewhere in the hotel, a clock chimed the quarter hour. Every face turned toward Clara Weiss, but Hercule Poirot watched only her hands. They were trembling, not with fear of being accused, with fear of remembering. Poirot walked slowly toward her. "Madame Weiss," he said gently, "you have just told us something you could not possibly know. I made a mistake. Yes, I was confused. Perhaps." She swallowed. Poirot's voice remained calm. "But confusion does not explain knowledge." Inspector Kovacs stepped forward. "Are you accusing her?" Poirot raised one small hand. "Not yet." Then he turned toward Madame Weiss. "You said the violin stopped at midnight." "Yes, but the ballroom clock was 3 minutes slow." She looked at the clock. "I did not know that." "Exactly." Poirot smiled. "The question is not how you knew the time." He paused. "The question is how you knew the music had stopped." Madame Weiss's expression collapsed. For several seconds nobody moved. Then she sat down. "I lied." Poirot nodded. "Yes." Hastings watched her anxiously. "Why?" Clara looked toward the empty violin chair. "Because Stefan asked me to." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Tell us everything." She took a breath. "Stefan is my brother." The room seemed to contract around those words. Countess Varga closed her eyes. Sir Reginald stared at the floor. Dr. Horvath looked away. Poirot remained perfectly still. "How long have you known he was alive?" "Since yesterday." "And where is he?" "I don't know." Poirot studied her. "This time, I believe you." She looked surprised. "Why?" "Because you are no longer performing." A tear slipped down her cheek. "The first time I spoke to you, I was frightened. And I thought if I told the truth, Stefan would be killed." "Who did you fear?" She hesitated. "Everyone." Poirot's expression softened. Ah, he understood. Fear had been her mask, not guilt. Hastings stepped closer. "But why pretend you didn't know Stefan?" "Because he told me to." "Why?" "Because someone was watching him." Poirot turned toward the others. "Now we approach the heart of the drama." Madame Weiss continued. 3 days before he disappeared, Stefan came to me secretly. He said he had discovered something about Sir Reginald's business. Sir Reginald snapped. "Lies." Clara looked at him. "Forgery." Silence. Stefan had found documents proving that paintings sold through several European galleries were fraudulent. But there was more. The money had been moved through false accounts. Poirot looked at Sir Reginald. "Is this true?" Sir Reginald said nothing. Poirot did not need an answer. Clara continued. "Stefan believed someone inside the hotel was helping the people behind the scheme. Who? He didn't know." Poirot nodded. "And then he disappeared." "Yes." "Did you know he planned to disappear?" "Yes." "Did you help him?" "Only once." "When?" "On the night of the disappearance." Poirot's eyes sharpened. "Tell me." Clara looked down. "Stefan came to me shortly before midnight. He said he had discovered someone was following him." "Who?" "He wouldn't say." "What did he ask you to do?" "Take a message to room 214. Poirot smiled. "The empty room." "Yes." "What was in the message?" "I don't know." Poirot studied her. "Where is it now?" She shook her head. "I left it there." Poirot turned to Hastings. "The stage grows larger." He then faced Dr. Horvath. "Doctor." Horvath looked uncomfortable. "You knew Stefan was alive?" "Yes." "Did you know about the plan?" "Only part of it." "Did you treat him after the disappearance?" "Yes." "Where?" "In the old service passage." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Then Stefan did not vanish from the hotel?" "No." "He moved?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because someone tried to poison him." Sir Reginald suddenly stood. "This is ridiculous." Poirot looked at him. "Sit down." Sir Reginald obeyed. Poirot's voice hardened. "Your performance has lasted long enough." Sir Reginald's face reddened. "You accuse me without proof." "No." Poirot smiled. "I accuse you of lying." "About what?" "You said you never met Stefan after dinner." "I didn't." Poirot reached into his pocket. He produced a small piece of paper. This was found in room 214. Sir Reginald stared at it. It was a hotel receipt. On the back was written, R.A. Midnight. Sir Reginald went pale. Hastings looked at Poirot. You know what that means. I have a theory. Sir Reginald's voice became defensive. Those initials could mean anyone. Certainly. Poirot nodded. But your reaction is interesting. The financier sat down again. I met Stefan. When? At 11:40. Where? Room 214. Why? He threatened me. About the forged paintings? Yes. What did he want? Money. Poirot studied him. Did you attack him? No. Did you poison him? No. Did you know he planned to disappear? Sir Reginald hesitated. Yes. Poirot nodded. Now we have truth. But the case was not solved. Poirot turned toward Countess Varga. You knew about the meeting. She looked startled. How? Because Stefan told you. Yes. Why did you conceal it? Because I loved him. Poirot nodded. Love is another mask. She looked down. I thought I could protect him. Poirot then turned toward the empty stage. The violin remained there, silent, waiting. He walked toward it. Something bothered him. The instrument had been placed perfectly. The chair was aligned. The music stand was straight. The blood had been staged. The glove had been planted. The room had been arranged. Someone had wanted the police to see a murder. But why? Poirot suddenly stopped. The blood. Hastings approached. What about it? The blood was never meant to prove Stefan was dead. Then what? To prove someone else was responsible. Poirot looked at Sir Reginald. Someone wanted the police to arrest him. Sir Reginald stared. Who? Poirot's gaze moved across the room. That is the question. Then he noticed Madame Weiss's expression. She had become frightened again. Not of Poirot, of someone behind him. Poirot turned. No one stood there, only the velvet curtains. He approached them. Behind the curtain was a narrow service door. The lock had been scratched recently. Poirot opened it. A cold draught entered. Beyond was the forgotten passage. Hastings followed. Could Stefan have escaped through here? Yes. Poirot looked down. A faint mark crossed the dusty floor. Someone had dragged something heavy. He crouched. Then he saw it. A small silver button. He picked it up. Madame Weiss stared at it. That isn't mine. Poirot looked at her. No. Whose is it? Poirot turned toward Sir Reginald. The financier's jacket was missing one silver button. Everyone stared. Sir Reginald touched his coat. His face changed. I lost that days ago. Poirot smiled. Perhaps. He held the button up. But the performance, it was convincing. Sir Reginald stepped backward. You think I killed him? No. Poirot's eyes hardened. I think someone wanted us to think you did. Suddenly, from somewhere deep inside the passage, came the sound of a violin. One long, trembling note. Everyone froze. Poirot slowly turned toward the darkness. Stefan's violin was still in the ballroom, yet someone was playing. Another note followed. Then another. Poirot smiled. Ah, Hastings whispered. Stefan. Poirot raised one finger. Listen. The melody stopped. A voice came from the darkness. You are looking for the wrong murderer, Monsieur Poirot. Then silence. Poirot's green eyes gleamed. The mask had fallen. He looked at the frightened faces behind him, but beneath it was not the true face. The true face was waiting behind another mask. The mask had fallen. The true face was not yet revealed. Chapter 6. Behind the curtain. The violin note faded into the darkness, leaving the Grand Danube Hotel unnaturally silent. Poirot stood before the narrow service door, his green eyes fixed upon the black passage beyond, while the others remained frozen behind him. The warm ballroom, with its crystal chandelier and velvet curtains suddenly seemed very far away from the cold stone corridor where the truth had begun to move. "Who is there?" called Inspector Kovacs. No answer came. Poirot raised one hand. "Do not rush," Hastings whispered, but someone was playing. "Yes, mon ami. Then they must still be there." Poirot smiled faintly. "Perhaps. Or perhaps they wished us to believe that." He entered the passage. His shoes clicked softly against the stone floor. The air smelled of damp wood, dust, and old furniture wax, while somewhere above them the hotel pipes groaned beneath the walls. Poirot stopped. On the floor lay a single black thread. He picked it up. "Interesting." Hastings leaned closer. "What is it?" "From a coat." "Whose?" Poirot looked behind him. "That is what we shall discover." The passage divided into two corridors. One led toward the old laundry room. The other disappeared behind a velvet curtain that had once been used by musicians entering the ballroom unseen. Poirot chose the laundry passage. A few yards later, they found a small wooden door. It was locked. Inspector Kovacs forced it open. Inside stood a narrow room containing an old chair, a wooden table, and several dusty cupboards. But someone had been there recently. A cup of coffee sat upon the table. It was still warm. Hastings stared. "Someone is here." Poirot touched the cup. "Very recently." Then he saw something on the chair, a violin case, empty. Poirot opened it fully. Inside was a small envelope. He removed it carefully. The envelope contained a photograph. It showed Stefan Markovic standing beside a young woman, Clara Weiss. But this photograph was older than the first. On the back were 3 words, brother and sister. Hastings stared. "Madame Weiss." Poirot nodded. "Yes." The door suddenly closed behind them. Hastings jumped. Inspector Kovacs drew his weapon. Poirot remained calm. "Observe." He pointed to the door. "The wind!" A draft moved through the passage. "Someone has opened another door." They followed the cold air. It led them to the rear courtyard. Snow had begun falling. There were footprints, fresh footprints. One person had crossed the courtyard toward the street. Poirot examined them. Small shoes. "Madame Weiss?" Hastings asked. Poirot shook his head. "No." He looked at the heel. "These shoes are too narrow." "Countess Varga?" "Perhaps." Poirot stood. "Or someone who wishes us to think they belong to her." The footprints ended beside a parked automobile. The driver was gone, but on the seat lay a folded newspaper. Poirot opened it. A paragraph had been marked in pencil. It concerned an old financial scandal in Vienna. Sir Reginald Ashcombe's name appeared in the article. Poirot read silently. Then he folded the paper. The backstage connections become clearer. Hastings looked confused. What connections? Poirot turned toward the hotel. 7 years ago, Stefan, Clara, Countess Varga, and Sir Reginald were connected. Through the art forgery? Partly. Then what else? Poirot shook his head. That is what we do not yet know. They returned to the hotel. Madame Weiss was waiting in the library. Her face was pale. Poirot placed the photograph before her. She looked at it. For several seconds she said nothing. Then she sat down. "Yes," she whispered. "You are Stefan's sister." "Yes." "Why conceal it?" "Because Stefan asked me to." "Why?" "Because our family name had become dangerous." Poirot leaned forward. "Tell me about your father." Clara looked toward the fire. "He was an art dealer." "Honest?" "Yes." "Until?" "Until Sir Reginald entered his life." She swallowed. "My father discovered that several paintings being sold through his gallery were forged. He refused to participate. Then the forged accounts were arranged to make it appear that he was responsible." Poirot listened carefully. "What happened?" He lost everything and died. 2 years later, the room became quiet. Hastings looked at Sir Reginald, who had been brought into the library by Inspector Kovacs. Sir Reginald's face was hard. I had nothing to do with the man's death. Clara turned toward him. You ruined him. I made mistakes. You destroyed him. I said I made mistakes. Poirot raised a hand. Enough. He looked at Clara. What did Stefan discover? A ledger. Where is it? I don't know. Did he have it? Yes. Where? He told me he had hidden it somewhere in the hotel. Poirot's eyes sharpened. Where? He wouldn't tell me. Why? Because he believed someone was listening. Poirot smiled. Very sensible. Then he turned to Sir Reginald. You wanted the ledger. I wanted nothing. Then why did you meet Stefan in room 214? Sir Reginald said nothing. Poirot continued. You threatened him. I warned him. Of what? That he was involving himself in matters he did not understand. Poirot studied him. Did you attempt to kill him? No. Did you arrange his disappearance? No. Then who did? Sir Reginald's face became troubled. I don't know. Poirot looked toward the fire. That is the first truthful answer you have given me. Later, Poirot sat alone beside the fireplace. Hastings joined him. You've discovered a great deal. Not enough. We know Stefan is alive. Yes. We know Clara is his sister. Yes. We know Sir Reginald was involved in the old scandal. Yes. And yet we still don't know who tried to kill Stefan. Poirot nodded. The murderer is hiding behind the motive. Hastings frowned. What does that mean? Everyone has given us a motive for wanting Stefan silent. But perhaps silence is not the real objective. Poirot looked into the fire. Consider the psychology. Hastings waited. A murderer may kill for money, revenge, jealousy, or fear. But sometimes the true desire is not to kill the victim. Then what? To control the story. Poirot turned toward him. Think of this case. Someone created blood. Someone planted a glove. Someone moved the violin. Someone invented a false room registration. He paused. They did not merely attack Stefan. They created a narrative. Exactly. Poirot's expression became serious. They wanted the police to believe a particular story. That Sir Reginald killed him. Yes. But why? Because Sir Reginald already possessed the perfect role, the arrogant financier, the man with the suspicious past, the man with a motive, the perfect villain. Poirot leaned back. That is the danger of prejudice, Hastings. Once an actor fits the role, the audience stops asking whether he actually performed the crime. He considered the old case of the secretary, who had hidden resentment behind years of loyalty. People often decide guilt before evidence appears. They see the role first, and the person second. Hastings nodded. So someone chose Sir Reginald as the villain. Yes. And Stefan? Poirot's eyes narrowed. Stefan was supposed to be the dead victim, but he survived, which means the murderer lost control of the script. A sound came from the corridor. Footsteps. Poirot stood. The door opened. Inspector Kovacs entered. We found something. He placed a small object on the table, a silver cufflink. Poirot examined it. His expression changed. Where did you find this? Room 317. Madame Weiss's room. Hastings looked at her. She shook her head. It isn't mine. Poirot turned the cufflink over. Engraved upon it were 2 letters. E.H. Dr. Emil Horvath. Poirot looked toward the door. Bring the doctor. Minutes later, Horvath entered. He saw the cufflink. His face went pale. I lost that yesterday. Poirot smiled. Yesterday? Yes. Where? In the ballroom. Poirot nodded slowly. Interesting. Horvath looked frightened. I didn't kill Stefan. I know. The doctor stared at him. You know? Poirot leaned forward. But you were in room 317. Horvath hesitated. Yes, with Madame Weiss. Yes. Why? The doctor looked at Clara. She closed her eyes. Poirot understood. There had been another secret meeting, another hidden conversation, another actor backstage. Poirot stood. Behind every curtain, a secret. He looked at the 4 suspects, and behind every secret, a motive. Then, from somewhere upstairs, came the unmistakable sound of a violin, one single note. Poirot smiled. The curtain is moving, and this time he knew the person behind it was becoming desperate. Chapter 7. The Hidden Ledger. The violin played only one note. Then silence returned to the Grand Danube Hotel. Hercule Poirot stood beneath the chandelier, his eyes fixed upon the ceiling as though he might see through the floors and discover the mysterious musician hiding above them. Inspector Kovacs reached for the door. "Wait," Poirot said. The inspector stopped. Poirot listened. Nothing. No footsteps, Hastings whispered. Exactly. But someone was playing. Someone wanted us to hear it. Poirot turned toward Dr. Emil Horvath, who stood beside the library fireplace. The doctor's face had become pale. Poirot held up the silver cufflink. "Doctor, you told me you lost this yesterday." "Yes." "In the ballroom." "Yes." "Then why was it found in Madame Weiss's room?" "I don't know." Poirot smiled. "That is the answer of a man who knows too little, or too much." Horvath lowered his eyes. "I went to room 317. Why?" "To speak with Clara." "About Stefan?" "Yes." "What did she tell you?" "That Stefan had left something behind." Poirot's expression sharpened. "The ledger." Horvath said nothing. "Where is it?" "I don't know." Poirot walked closer. "Doctor, you are protecting someone." Horvath looked at Clara. She gave the smallest shake of her head. Poirot saw it. "Ah," he smiled. "You are protecting her." Clara stood. "No, he is protecting Stefan." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Then tell me where Stefan is." "I cannot, or will not." She hesitated. "Both." Poirot nodded. "Very well." He turned toward Inspector Kovacs. "Search the old chapel." Kovacs frowned. "The chapel?" "Yes." "Why?" Poirot pointed toward the violin. "Because our musician has been playing us a melody, and melodies often lead somewhere." The inspector left with 2 officers. Hastings stared at Poirot. "You think Stefan is in the chapel?" "No." "Then why send them?" "Because if someone is hiding Stefan, they will be frightened by the search." Within 20 minutes, the hotel was in confusion again. Officers searched the abandoned chapel behind the hotel kitchen. They found nothing. But Poirot had achieved what he wanted. Someone had moved. A maid came running into the library. "Inspector, someone has been seen near the east staircase." Poirot immediately stood. "Who?" "Mr. Ashcombe." "Sir Reginald." Poirot followed. They found the financier at the bottom of the staircase. He looked furious. "Where were you going?" Inspector Kovacs demanded. "To my room." "Why?" "Because I am tired of being interrogated." Poirot examined his shoes. There was dust on them. Not hotel dust. Fine grey dust mixed with reddish clay. Poirot looked toward the east corridor. "Where does that passage lead?" The manager answered nervously. "To the old archive rooms." Poirot smiled. "Then we have our destination." They entered the archive. It was a forgotten part of the Grand Danube Hotel, filled with old ledgers, broken furniture, discarded carpets, and boxes dating back decades. Dust covered almost everything. Almost. Poirot noticed one shelf where the dust had recently been disturbed. He removed a large ledger. Behind it was a narrow gap. Inside lay a black leather notebook. Hastings opened it. The first pages contained names, dates, amounts of money, gallery addresses. Poirot turned the pages slowly. Then he stopped. Here. Sir Reginald stepped forward. Give it to me. Poirot closed the book. No, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. The financier's face was tense. That ledger could destroy several people. Yes, not just me. Poirot looked at him. Who else? Sir Reginald hesitated. Poirot's eyes hardened. Tell me. Finally, Sir Reginald whispered. Clara's father. Hastings looked confused. But he's dead. Yes. Sir Reginald swallowed. The ledger contains evidence that he was framed. Clara, standing in the doorway, suddenly covered her mouth. Poirot looked at her. Did you know? She shook her head. No. Sir Reginald continued. I was involved in the scheme, but I was not the man who created it. Who was? Sir Reginald looked toward the hallway. I never knew his real name. Poirot frowned. But you know his identity? Yes. Who? Sir Reginald's lips trembled. The hotel manager. Everyone turned. The manager went white. That is absurd. Poirot stared at him. Is it? The manager backed away. I have worked here for 20 years. Precisely. Poirot stepped closer. You knew where the old records were kept. The manager said nothing. You knew the service passages. Silence. You knew which rooms were empty. Still nothing. You knew the hotel clock was 3 minutes slow. The manager's face changed. Poirot smiled. And you knew precisely where to place the blood. Inspector Kovacs moved toward him. The manager suddenly ran. He pushed past a waiter and disappeared through the archive door. Stop him! Kovacs shouted. The officers chased him. Poirot did not move. Hastings looked surprised. Why aren't you following? Because he is running toward the place I expect him to go. The service passage? Exactly. A minute later, there was a crash, then shouting, then silence. The officers returned. We lost him. Poirot smiled. No. He walked toward the wall. He did not escape. What do you mean? Poirot examined an old wooden cabinet. This hotel was built with secret passages. He pushed the cabinet aside. Behind it was a narrow opening. Hastings stared. Good heavens! Poirot entered. The passage was barely wide enough for one person. It led downward. The air grew colder. Then they heard something. A cough. Poirot stopped. Stéphane? No answer. They continued. At the end of the passage was a small, underground room. A lantern burned beside a table, and sitting against the wall was Stefan Markovic, alive. His face was pale. His left arm was bandaged. Hastings rushed toward him. Stefan! Poirot raised a hand, slowly. Stefan looked at Poirot. You took your time. Poirot smiled. I prefer to arrive after the clues. Stefan gave a weak laugh. Then his expression became serious. You must listen. I am listening. The person who attacked me is still in the hotel. Poirot nodded. I know. No. Stefan shook his head. You don't. He looked toward the passage. The manager is only a servant. Poirot's eyes narrowed. A servant? Yes. Then who is his master? Stefan stared at him. I never saw the man's face. Poirot remained silent. How do you know he exists? Because he spoke to me. When? Before I disappeared. What did he say? Stefan swallowed. He told me that the violin was never the message. Poirot frowned. What was? Stefan looked directly into his eyes. The music. Poirot's expression changed. The melody? Yes. Why? Because the notes contain a code. Hastings stared. A code? Stefan nodded. I was not playing for the guests. Poirot's eyes gleamed. You were communicating with someone. Yes. Who? Stefan hesitated. The person who knows the truth. Suddenly, footsteps echoed above them. Everyone froze. Someone had entered the passage. Poirot extinguished the lantern. Darkness swallowed the room. A shadow appeared at the entrance. Then a voice whispered, "Stefan." Stefan's eyes widened. Poirot leaned close to Hastings. "Do not move." The footsteps came closer. One step, then another. The stranger entered the room. Poirot waited, then suddenly struck a match. The brief flame illuminated the stranger's face. It was Madame Weiss. Clara stared at her brother. Stefan whispered, "You shouldn't have come." She looked at Poirot. "I had no choice." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Why?" Clara reached into her coat. She produced a small envelope. Inside was a sheet of music. "The final movement," she said. Poirot took it. At the bottom of the page was a handwritten message. "The murderer will conduct the final note." Poirot stared at the words. Then he smiled. At last. Hastings looked at him. "What?" Poirot folded the music carefully. "We have been listening to the wrong melody." He looked toward the darkness of the passage. The final note has not yet been played, and somewhere above them, a violin began to play. Chapter 8. The Final Movement. The violin continued to play somewhere above them. One haunting note followed another, drifting through the hidden passage beneath the Grand Danube Hotel. Poirot held the sheet music in his hand. "The murderer will conduct the final note." "Clara," he said quietly, "where did you obtain this?" She looked at Stefan. "He gave it to me." "When?" "Before he disappeared." Stefan shook his head. "Not exactly." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "The sheet was hidden inside my violin. I discovered it only after the attack." Poirot smiled. "Then someone expected you to find it." A sudden crash echoed from above. Everyone froze. Inspector Kovacs reached for his weapon. Poirot raised a hand. "No." He looked at the sheet music again. The final note. "What does it mean?" Hastings asked. Poirot pointed to the musical notation. "The melody is a code." He quickly studied the sequence of notes. These are not merely musical instructions. They correspond to letters. Stefan nodded. "I discovered the same thing." "And the message?" Stefan's expression darkened. "Room 412. Poirot looked at Clara. "Your room?" "No, the room beside mine." "Who occupies it?" "The hotel manager." Poirot smiled. "Ah." They hurried through the passage. When they reached the upper floor, the violin had stopped. Room 412 stood open. Inside, everything appeared ordinary. A bed, a writing desk, a wardrobe, a small suitcase. Poirot walked slowly around the room. Then he noticed the wall clock. It was stopped at 12:03, the exact moment of Stefan's disappearance. Poirot smiled. The clock. Hastings stared. "What about it?" Poirot opened the casing. Inside was a tiny recording device. The violin music had been recorded. Poirot understood. The murderer wanted us to hear Stefan playing after he had supposedly vanished. Stefan looked stunned. "But why?" "To convince us you were still moving through the hotel." Poirot turned toward the door. "And to hide the real timeline." A sound came from the corridor. Footsteps. Everyone turned. The hotel manager stood there. His face was pale. Poirot pointed at him. "Your performance is finished." The manager backed away. "You have no proof." Poirot smiled. "We have enough. The blood? Planted. The glove? Planted. The false identity? Yours." The manager's eyes shifted toward the window. Poirot continued. "You used the secret passages. You knew the clocks. You knew the hotel better than anyone." The manager suddenly lunged toward Stefan. Kovacs caught him. The man struggled. "I didn't kill him." Poirot nodded. "I know." The room fell silent. "You arranged the disappearance," Poirot continued. "But you were not the mastermind." The manager stopped struggling. Poirot looked at the others. "Someone else conducted this entire performance." Then a slow clap came from the doorway. Everyone turned. Sir Reginald stood there, but his expression was different. Calm, almost amused. Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Sir Reginald," the financier smiled. "You finally understand." Poirot stepped forward. "Yes." Sir Reginald's smile faded. "The real murderer never needed to kill Stefan." Poirot looked at him. "Because the true objective was the ledger." Sir Reginald said nothing. Poirot continued, "And now I know where it is." His gaze moved toward the violin. The final movement was never about Stefan. He smiled. It was about the evidence. Outside, thunder rolled over Budapest. The Orchestra of Lies had reached its final movement, and Hercule Poirot was ready to conduct. Chapter 9. The Master Conductor. The library was silent. Sir Reginald stood beside the doorway, his expression calm, almost amused. Behind him, Inspector Kovacs held the hotel manager firmly, while Clara remained close to Stefan. Poirot looked at Sir Reginald. "You have been very patient," he said. Sir Reginald smiled. "Have I?" "Yes. You allowed us to discover the manager. You allowed us to find the ledger. You even allowed me to believe you were the mastermind. And now I know better." Sir Reginald's smile disappeared. Poirot turned toward the violin. The ledger was never hidden in the archive. Hastings looked confused. "But we found it there." "Yes." Poirot pointed toward the violin case. "The book we found was a copy." Sir Reginald's face tightened. The original ledger was hidden inside Stefan's violin. Stefan stared at his instrument, but I searched it, not carefully enough. Poirot opened the violin case and examined the wooden lining. With the tip of a small knife, he lifted a thin panel. Beneath it was a second compartment. Inside lay several folded documents. Stefan gasped. "The real ledger?" Poirot nodded. "Exactly." Sir Reginald suddenly moved toward the case. Kovacs blocked him. "Stay where you are." Poirot unfolded the documents. Names, bank accounts, gallery transactions, payments, and at the bottom of several pages was the same mysterious initial. E.H. Hastings stared. "Dr. Horvath." The doctor went pale. "No." Poirot looked at him. "Not you." He turned the page. "The initials belong to someone else." "Who?" Hastings asked. Poirot looked at the hotel manager. "Your employer." The manager froze. Sir Reginald closed his eyes. Poirot continued. "The manager was merely the middleman. He arranged rooms, messages, false identities, and the staged crime." "But who gave him the orders?" Hastings asked. Poirot looked toward the hallway. A woman stood there. Countess Ilona Varga. Everyone stared. She walked slowly into the room. Sir Reginald whispered, "Ilona." Poirot nodded. "Yes." The Countess looked at Stefan. "I am sorry." Stefan's face hardened. "You? I never wanted you dead. But you arranged everything. I wanted the ledger. Why?" She looked at Sir Reginald. "Because 7 years ago, my family lost everything because of those accounts." Poirot listened carefully. "You wanted revenge." "Yes." "But why frame Sir Reginald?" "Because he was guilty enough to be believed." Poirot nodded. "Precisely." The Countess's eyes filled with tears. "I only wanted the truth exposed." "You poisoned Stefan." "No." She shook her head. "The poison came from someone else." Everyone became silent. Poirot looked at Dr. Horvath. The doctor lowered his head. "I prepared the medicine," he whispered. Hastings stared. "Why?" "Because Stefan asked me to." Poirot smiled. The poison was never meant to kill him. It created the appearance of an attack. Stefan nodded. "I needed everyone to believe I had disappeared." Poirot looked around the room. At last, the entire performance made sense. The blood, the violin, the false room, the secret passages, the recorded music. Every clue had been designed to lead the investigators toward a carefully chosen conclusion. Poirot turned toward Countess Varga. You planned the disappearance. Yes, but you lost control when the manager decided to turn the performance into a murder. The manager lowered his eyes. Poirot continued. And Sir Reginald? He discovered the plan. The financier nodded reluctantly. I realized Stefan was alive. I said nothing. Because you feared the ledger. Yes. Poirot closed the violin case. The mystery is solved. Outside, the first light of dawn appeared over Budapest. Stefan looked toward his sister. Is it over? Poirot smiled. For the actors, yes. He adjusted his moustache. But remember, mon ami, the most dangerous mysteries are not those with the best criminals. He looked toward the empty stage. They are those in which everyone believes they know the ending. The curtain finally fell, and this time there was no violin to play the final note. Chapter 10. The Curtain Falls. Dawn arrived over Budapest in a pale wash of silver and gold. The rain had finally stopped, leaving the streets outside the Grand Danube Hotel shining beneath the early morning light. Inside, however, the night's drama was not yet forgotten. The ballroom remained exactly as Poirot had left it. The violin stood upon its chair. The empty stage waited beneath the chandelier. But now the silence felt different. There were no secrets left to hide. Inspector Kovacs had taken the hotel manager into custody. The ledger had been secured as evidence, and the forged accounts would soon expose the financial scheme that had destroyed Clara and Stefan's family years earlier. Countess Varga sat quietly in the library. Sir Reginald remained under police supervision. Dr. Horvath had admitted his part in Stefan's disappearance, explaining that the supposed poisoning had been staged to convince everyone that Stefan had been attacked. It had been an elaborate deception, but Hercule Poirot was not yet satisfied. He stood beside the ballroom window with Hastings. You seem disappointed, Hastings said. Disappointed? You solved the mystery. Poirot smiled. No, mon ami, I solved the crime. And the difference? The mystery is the reason people lie. Hastings considered this. Poirot continued. Every person in this hotel had a secret, yet not every secret belonged to a murderer. He looked toward Stefan. The violinist stood beside his sister. You see, Hastings, the blood was a lie. The disappearance was a lie. Even the music was a lie. And yet the truth was hidden inside all of them. Precisely. Stefan approached. Mr. Poirot. Poirot turned. I wanted to thank you. There is no need. You saved my life. Poirot smiled. No. You saved your own life by creating the illusion that you had lost it. Stefan laughed softly. Perhaps. Poirot looked at the violin. You are a clever musician. Stefan picked it up. I don't think I shall play for a while. Poirot raised an eyebrow. Why? Because every time I hear a violin now, I shall remember this hotel. Poirot smiled. Then play somewhere else. Clara joined them. We're leaving Budapest. Together? Yes. Poirot nodded approvingly. Good. Hastings watched them depart. Then he turned toward Poirot. One thing still bothers me. What? The message. Poirot knew immediately what he meant. The murderer will conduct the final note. It was never literal, Poirot said. Then what did it mean? Poirot walked to the stage. He picked up the final sheet of music. The murderer conducted the story. He folded the paper, not the music. Hastings smiled. Of course. Poirot adjusted his moustache. That is the danger of a good performance, Hastings. The audience becomes so fascinated by the acting that it forgets to ask who wrote the play. Outside, a carriage passed through the waking streets. The Grand Danube Hotel slowly returned to normal. Waiters prepared breakfast. Guests collected their luggage. Doors opened. The police departed with their evidence. And beneath the chandelier, The violin remained silent. Poirot took one final look at the stage. The curtain has fallen. Hastings nodded. "And what shall we do now?" Poirot smiled. "We shall have breakfast." Hastings laughed. "After all this, especially after all this." They walked toward the dining room. Behind them, the ballroom doors slowly closed. The mystery of the vanishing violinist was over. The masks had fallen. The hidden ledger had been found. The truth had finally been heard, and somewhere beyond the Danube, Budapest awakened to another ordinary morning. But for Hercule Poirot, one lesson remained unforgettable. The cleverest murderer does not always hide the crime. Sometimes he hides the truth inside a story everyone is eager to believe.